Oi! Headhunter! Welcome, everybody, to Monday's edition of the Headhunter Hideout. I am super excited today. I have Dandan Zhu with me. She is the founder of DG Recruit and has been an entrepreneur and influencer within the recruitment space for the past about 5 to 10 years. And she rose to the top really quickly, was a top biller at the firm that she was at, and was actually able to retire at the age of 28 from corporate life and really focus on real estate investing and some of her passions. And then decided to make a return to recruiting, but this time from a different angle, helping recruitment agencies recruit and retain top talent. So if you're not familiar with Dandan, she has a lot of information that's out there on Forbes, Newsweek, Times, Huffington Post. She's just a real valuable asset to the recruitment industry. So we're super excited to have you on the show. So welcome in.
Thank you so much for having me, Joel. This is so fun. I love your intro. I love everything you're doing about spreading the word far and wide. So thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's great to have you here. And I was gonna tell you right before we started. I think it was probably about 2 years ago I came across your content. And, I think at that time, I really wasn't active on LinkedIn, so I wasn't posting things, 5 times a day like I am now. But I came across your content and it really inspired me to just think bigger and not just get stuck in that rut of, okay, this is my career. This is what it's going to look like. These are the rules. I've got to follow them, but to actually kind of think bigger and also just be able to be open to pursuing my own passions and dreams. So I really appreciate that about you, and just wanted to give you that shout out before we got kicked off.
Thank you so much. And I'm always looking to create great content. So I'm just so grateful that you invited me to be on your show, and then we can share some insights with your audience.
Yeah. So why don't we get started? I know that you went to school for finance, and you graduated and fell into the recruitment game. So tell me a little bit about that. I'd love to just kind of hear how you got started in the industry and how that came about.
Sure thing. So ever since high school, I had internships in white collar jobs where I worked at banks. I also had blue collar jobs. I worked at my family's restaurant. I did painting walls. I also did weed whacking for one of my mom's disgusting properties in a very crappy suburb. So I've done all different types of jobs ever since I was young. And what I really came to understand was a job really is a shift in really your labor hours and you're getting out of the labor hours, which is money, right? So from a very young age, I just was like, okay, so job basically does that, right? Like I go to work and I get paid. So I could be a doctor, I could be a lawyer, I could be a scientist, I could be a weed whacker, God knows what. The point of working is to make money, is kind of how I viewed it. And when I was graduating in 2009, in middle of the recession, I actually was so ignorant because my family, we were just like immigrants. Right. So they did not know the American job system. They just had the classic sort of immigrant mentality. I was, my parents are highly educated immigrants. So, they're like, you got to be doctor or lawyer. And I was like, well, I don't want to be either of those things because I think that advice is so outdated. It's not a fit for me. I could not pass chemistry for my life. And I also did not want to become a lawyer because of law school. It's so expensive. It's prohibitive. And the demand for lawyers is so small compared to the supply of lawyers. So I just was like, I don't want to do any of those things. And by, whatever you want to call it, the powers that be, I just kind of told the world, hey, I want to be successful. I want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. That's the whole kind of goal, right? And I don't want to do it when I'm 40. I would like to do it ASAP. And I don't want to go back to school for that. So typically when you look at people who get very successful, very young, they tend to be in sales professions, right? Only in sales roles is this opportunity to make doctor money without having to be a doctor. Right. So I was like, what kind of job is going to let me do that? And I had no idea what headhunting was. right? I was just online applying and I was just telling the universe, I want to make money and I don't know how I'm going to make this money. So I was just applying. And then my eventual future employer hit me up and was like, hey, have you heard about recruitment? Right? You're not a fit for our finance job, but you might be a good recruiter yourself. So have you thought of that? And the minute I stepped in the career, I was just like, this is it for me. This is my path. This is my way. This is my ticket to financial freedom. This is my shortcut. This is how I'm going to make my money. And I found that very niche sales job that would give me that opportunity that I really did not find in other sales jobs, like real estate sales, like financial wealth sales, like product sales, all not like recruitment. Recruitment is a beast of its own. And I loved it from the day I got started. I was like, this is it for me. So that's how I got into the business and really fell in love with it.
So did you, when you first started in recruitment, did you focus purely on finance, or how did you pick what to focus in? And I know you talk a lot about this too, and a lot of your content about, how a new recruiter can get in an industry and specialize. So I'm curious, how did that happen for you?
So as with a lot of recruiters, we're assigned a market, right? Your boss will tell you, hey, this is your market. You will be doing this. So that's what happened to me. I had no idea what my market was about. They were just like, hey, you know what? You joined the pharmaceutical arm of our business. I was like, great. I know nothing. They're like, awesome. Well, here you go. You need to recruit for regulatory writers. And I was like, I know nothing. So what do you do when you know nothing? Well, tough luck. This is a sales job. You have to figure it out. So day one, they had us calling clients and candidates. Day one, they were just like, here's how you have a candidate call. Here's how you have a client call. And here's like the internet. And you can just go and do this now. So I was just like, every day the adrenaline was just pumping because you had to think on your feet. You had to extract information from people who had no real reason to give you an education. And you had to earn the stripes of having their respect so that they would talk to you and take you seriously. And you just had to fake it till you made it because you really don't know anything. I was 23 when I started. I knew nothing about the pharmaceutical industry. I also didn't do a deep dive. I'm not a research-oriented person. I'm more about talking to people and learning from people. Because my point is, how can I get people to educate me? Why do I have to do the research if I can just ask someone the right questions so that they'll tell me what I need to know and empower me to understand the market? So day one, our company just assigned me this market and I just hit the ground running. No one in our company had done it before. I was one of 5 people, 2 of which got fired shortly after. So I was the only sort of the first American hire that actually stayed. I worked at a British company and my 2 bosses just came fresh off the boat and we were just like learning it. We had no clients. We had no house accounts. So I had to learn how to get clients. I signed on a lot of key clients pretty much from day one. And I don't know how. It was just luck and it was hard work and it was just repetition and volume. Right?
What were those hours like at the beginning? I'm curious. I mean,
yeah, our legal hours at the time, this was before the non-exempt law went into place. So technically speaking, it was from I think it was 8 to 6 was sort of our agreed upon hours. When I started, I think it was actually 9 to 6, but then we extended it to 8. We wanted everyone in the office earlier. So typically speaking, it was 8 to 6. I from the day one, I stayed till 9 p.m. every single day, and I came in on weekends because I was just like, this is stupid money. I just started playing around with the calculator, the commission calculator. I was like, this is stupid money. I should just stay in the office as long as possible and just work here every minute I can, because it was just the numbers in terms of what you could earn was significant in my standards, having been a young college grad that 60 grand would have been a lot of money. So I was like, wow, you can make 6 figures if you really work hard, and I could see this happening. So my hours were different than everybody else's hours. I worked 7 days a week, and I worked on weekends. I take it easy. I come into work at 10 and I leave around 4. But I would constantly work weekends very frequently in my first year and my second year and my third year. Whenever I needed to, I would work weekends. And what I did on weekends, I was actually traveling to meet my clients and candidates, mostly candidates, but I was traveling to meet them, to really get to know them, to build those relationships so that I could expand my network. So that's really what I spent most of my time on eventually on weekends, was really going out there in the field to meet with people.
Well, I love it, and I'm just gonna look at some of these comments too. We've got Nick just says hi, and we got Cleopatra out there as well, says hi. Serge just says hi to Nick. So Nick's pretty popular here, but he just said those are some long days, which they are. I'm curious with the long days. Putting in that time, like what fueled you during those early days? And it sounded like a couple of other people kind of started with you and they got fired pretty quickly. I take it that was just to do with like lack of production, or they just weren't motivated. But what drove you, and what do you think made you different compared to maybe some of the other people that you saw come through the office that didn't make it?
A few things, definitely attitude. My attitude was very strategic from day one. I knew that I came to work to make money. That was my goal. If I was not going to make money, it would bring shame upon me and my family. Like that is how I took it, right? I'm Asian. I have a big chip on my shoulder. I grew up in a family of highly like go-getter immigrants, that typical kind of work 90 to 100 hours. Like my parents are workhorses, right? So they run a restaurant. I grew up in the restaurant business. When I worked in my family's restaurant, I actually managed my entire family restaurant when I was 22 years old. I had 10 employees, 15 employees, including delivery people. I had to manage this restaurant for like 10 months, and I didn't take a single day off. And I was working restaurant work from the hours of 10:30 in the morning up to 11 is when we closed. I would get home at midnight, and then I would party at night because I was 22, right? So I would like just go party. I'd smell like Chinese food, and I'd go outside and club. And then I go back. And so coming into a 9 to 5, a white collar job, I was like, this is a piece of cake. Like, it's just a joke. Like, I had to work 7 hours a week, schlepping, dealing with like all different types of people that I didn't want to deal with, doing something I hated. I did not enjoy restaurant work. I don't find it fulfilling. I did it for my family, right? My family needed me to do that. I didn't do it out of my own choice. So when I had my own choice, I was like, oh my God, this is so freeing. This is a choice. This is my choice. I came here to make money, and this is a vacation compared to what I'm used to. And then also I'm on a 35K base and I live in New York City. I didn't come here to play around. I didn't come here to hang out. Like I'm not in the luxury or the privilege of enjoying my nights. I'm 23 years old. I don't have a boyfriend. I'm single. I have this dream in my heart to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And I'm not going to get there if I work the same hours everybody else is working. And I'm not going to get there if I play it the same way everybody else is playing, right? So when I'm in the training class, we had training program. Obviously, it's a large recruiting firm that had like these classes very similar to the Aerotechs and the Randstads of the world, right? We have like centralized trainers. I said, even the trainer, I'm going to make her fall in love with me. I'm going to make sure everybody in this office is going to say good things about me because I'm the star and I'm going to be the star and everybody's going to like me. And I'm going to put myself in a politically advantageous position because every single thing matters. I came here to make money. I came here to be the most successful person in this office. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not coming here to make friends. I'm not coming here to have fun. I'm coming here to make a living so that I can reach my financial goals and quit working early. I don't want to be working till I'm 50. I'd like to quit working by the time I'm 30. Like I don't want to waste time. And the clock starts ticking today. So everything I do is going to play into my future success. If I don't do this extra thing, if I don't work these extra hours, I did the extra hours for show. A lot of it was for show. So that I would hit all my targets. Everybody's like, look, that person's hitting all their targets and she's coming in on weekends. And I would be proudly like, yes, I am the teacher's pet. I am earning all these extra accolades because this is serious. I want to be the top of this company and I'm not coming here to play around, right? So in our training class, I remember very clearly, I would see other people in our training class and I would think to myself, they're not going to make it. And they didn't. They're not going to make it. Their attitude isn't correct. They're not learning the material. They're not applying the material and they don't really care. At the end of the day, they don't really care about the opportunity that they have. They just don't have the drive. They don't recognize this opportunity and what it can do for you, right? And that comes from privilege. I had a lot of colleagues that came into work with Chanel watches and Cartier bracelets. And I was like, to my knowledge, I don't know how you afford that on 35K base and you live in Manhattan, right? So when you meet people like that, where's the hunger? Where's the drive? there usually isn't. So the success of salespeople is actually very low, because a lot of people, you know, who can afford a 35K base, they already come from privilege.
Yeah.
Some of them, like me, don't. So we have to make it work.
Well, I know that coming out of school too in 2009, you mentioned a little bit with the, you know, the Great Recession. I mean, I know with recruitment, you know, a lot of recruiters that I talk about that being an extremely tough time. So you're coming into recruitment at a very tough time. Did you kind of sense that in the atmosphere with the company? Like, were you made aware of that? Or they just were like, hey, we're not even going to tell you how much of a challenging time it is? I'm curious to that approach.
I was completely clueless in 2009 of what was happening. I was completely clueless. Like, I did not like to read The Economist. At the time, the internet was good, but it wasn't as good as it is today with like the doom and gloom messaging, right? So I didn't understand how bad the world, what shape we were in. And it was like irrelevant to me, because that's macroeconomic data. It has nothing to do with me. Like, I'm not in Wall Street. I'm not a financier. You know, none of that really would affect me. I didn't have a mortgage, right? So these things didn't affect my family or my life. So I actually was completely ignorant about all of these things. And I started recruiting in January of 2011. Right. So at that point, you know, some of the recessionary issues kind of went away. But even so, it never bothered me, also because I was in the pharmaceutical world, and pharmaceutical recruitment, obviously, pharma is always good. Right. It has nothing to do with finance. If in fact, you know, pharma still today, life sciences, is the number one most lobbied business interest for the U.S., especially U.S. This country. It puts so much money into healthcare and pharma, that it wasn't going to really impact my business. But I think even so, I mean, I joined a company that had a zero book of business. So we had no clients. So day one, I come in, I don't even know what I'm recruiting for. We don't even have a single client, like not even a single job to work on. So that was really interesting, was how do you create literally something out of nothing? Like, you don't have a single candidate in your candidate profile. I mean, you might have a few and they're like bottom of the barrel. You don't have a single A candidate. Like, no one has created this company yet. I was the third person employed.
That's
right?
awesome. I love it.
Right. So you don't know what you don't know. And because I didn't know how difficult it was just a non-issue. I didn't even know. I didn't even understand. Oh, you're supposed to have a bunch of jobs to work on. Oh, you're supposed to have I didn't know. I was just like, I don't know. This is what I was given. I was given nothing. I was given a phone. I was given like a how-to. I was shown like how these calls work. I listened to a few, and that was it. Right. So it was just like, you just don't know anything when you start. So you didn't have that comparison point to be like, wow, this is really difficult. I never thought it was difficult. I was just like, this is just a job, and this is just sales. Sales is always going to be like this. You're always going to be creating something out of nothing. So this is not any more difficult or easier than I expected it to be. It was just what it was.
Yeah, I love that. And Jason just says, it's because you were hungry. The fat cats don't hunt. And it's definitely true in recruiting. And it's easy. I think even once you're earning, you know, good money, it's easier to sit back, and you find a lot of people do that. Obviously, that's not your mentality. So you started, I mean, how long did it take to get really up and running? I mean, was there, you know, how much runway did they give you, and how long did that take you to get up and running and getting those job orders in and fill in the roles?
So I got job orders in, I think my second week. Like, I got 2 big accounts in. I went on a client meeting, like my first, I think the second or third week, and I had a car. I took my car from Boston, and I lived in a very far away part of New York, in Brooklyn, in a little town that was really easy to have a car. So I would just drive, right, to go see clients. And so immediately I would like visit clients. I would pitch meetings right away. So I was able to like meet the customers very quickly, and solidify those relationships. So month 1, I had already landed jobs, like multiple jobs, probably like 4 jobs, and signed accounts. And then I started doing deals. I think I did my deal maybe the second month. I already did my first deal. And by month 6, I had already placed 3 people. by myself. In a new account, I had 2 deals with a new account, so that was repeat business, which was nice. And it just kind of like, it was like, oh, I'll take this one and I'll take that one. I was like, great. So within the first like 6 months, I was starting to really get the hang of it. Like I could go to meetings by myself. I could like, at that point, my boss went with me to 1 meeting. That was our first client meeting, maybe 2, and that was it. After that, I was just driving by myself, going there, reporting back, and that was pretty much it. Because at that point, I just understood like more or less, I knew more about my market than anybody knew at that point. So it wasn't like if I brought anyone, they would know any different. The only thing they helped me on was like negotiation for contracts, like what to negotiate. But pharmaceutical companies have very strict kind of like what they're willing to take on to their PSL. So it wasn't like if I brought a big hitter, we could have negotiated. It was what it was. Like
pretty black and white.
Yeah, if you're trying to sign on a Fortune 50 pharmaceutical company, it's just either you sign our terms or you don't. Like you either want the whole PSL or you don't. So, at a certain point, it was just, you don't really need to bring people with you anywhere. So I'd say by month 6, I really understood what I was doing to a very competent degree. By the end of year 1, I was pretty much a pro.
And so at what point did it enter your mind? It's kind of inevitable, I guess, with a lot of recruiters. But what point did it enter your mind where you're like, you know what, I want to get out of this and I want to kind of pursue my passion or kind of do my own thing? Like, what was that almost immediate? Like that was always your end goal, or did that happen throughout this process?
So my dad, when I started this job, I told my dad, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about recruitment as a career. I think I can retire at this company. I'm going to work here for a decade. I'm going to open up multiple divisions for them. I'm going to rise to the tippity top of this ladder, and I'm going to just do that. And my dad was like, you're going to be out of there in 5 years. And I was like, that's not true. I'm like deadly loyal. This is a place for me. They made me who I am. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here till I die, until I retire. He was like, that's not going to happen. So around year 3, I was like at that point, I was like, life was good. Like I was just caking it. Like this market, I knew like the back of my hand. That was my 3rd year in the market. I was leaving the office at like 6, which is early for me. And I wasn't working weekends. It was just easy. I was billing over 740 that year. And it was easy. I wasn't working hard. I wasn't like some of that like hunger and the hard work I was putting in. I was just putting into real estate investing. I was using that time for other stuff. So right around there, my company started giving me people to manage. And that's a really tricky thing, because if you manage people, you actually lose money if you're a top biller. Because if you're a top biller, you're earning a lot of money off of your production, because you're billing at a number that is not very normal. So you're able to take home really abnormal rates of return. But so typically the type of person that goes into management is usually a mediocre performer that like financially it makes sense, because it's like, oh, I'm not like losing that much. When you're a top performer, you go into management, you do lose a lot of money, because instead of making what you were making, now you got to manage a bunch of people and hope that you're going to profit off of their production, because recruiting is a pyramid structure, right? Like you're making money for your team. And I was 25, 26 at the time. I had no external mentors. I had nobody helping me guide my career. And my boss is telling me, this is what you should do. You should be a manager. So I'm like, okay, I think we have an agreement that the only thing I care about is money in my pocket. So if you're telling me that this is good for me, then it must be financially rewarding. That was not the case. I went from making $215,000 the year previously to making almost $90,000, which is a slap in the face for me. I felt taken advantage of. I felt lied to. I felt and they also took away the market I built. So I built up this amazing market that I was just like chilling, and they took that market and they gave it to somebody else managing. And as good as your intentions may be, the failure rate in this industry is so high that you can expect 4 out of 5 people to fail. And the person who even succeeds may not even be that great. They may struggle to even do 1 deal a month. I mean, someone who can do a perm desk on a tough candidate market, if they can do 1 deal a month, you're already thanking the gods, right? You're already like, wow, this person's like freaking top biller material. If they can do 1 deal a month as a junior, which is what I did, you'd be 1 out of hundreds of people. Yep. So what I realized when I got into the management gig was that, oh my God, I would have to be so lucky to literally have 4 of me to make a measly like $4,000 a month. Right? Like I would have to have 4 me's working for me to make just 4,000 a month when I'm over here making 20 grand by myself a month.
Yeah.
So by the time I realized this, I just was like decimated from a mental perspective, from a mindset, from a trust. I felt completely violated. I could not believe that people advised me to do this and sold this plan to me because I lost, 200,000 that year.
Well, what do you think their mindset was behind that? I'm curious. I mean, had you expressed like, hey, I want to go into management, or I mean, what was so? Because to me, they'd be losing money too. So like, what was their thinking, or did you ever unpack that with them?
So what companies do at a certain stage is they just grow. They need to grow.
Right.
And they don't have internal staff to keep these people growing. So what's the best way to motivate young people is to take your top biller and make them a manager, because then it just kind of sells the dream of what's going on. Right. And then you just use this top biller, and you use the top billers to use the loyalty, use their kind of buy-in to you, and you use it, and you get away with kind of like selling them the dream and this having them sell the dream. It's just a company, right? Companies do that. That's how companies do at a certain size. Right. Once you get to a certain size, it's no longer about maximum profitability per head. It's actually just about growth.
Right.
So in the beginning of a company's beginning, it's always looking at profit per head. You're trying to maximize profit per head so that you can grow and have the profit drive growth. But once you have the profit coming in to drive growth, now it's about growth. Now it's not about profit per head. Now it's about growth for the sake of growth. And so I worked for a large company that was kind of in that boat, where that was just the top down. That's the path for them. It's not the path for me, because my micro view, and you can't even blame anyone for this. This is just commerciability. This is just business, right? My insular micro view is simple. I just want to make the most amount of dollars per hour. And I want that number to go up every single year I work here. And the minute that stops, I'm going to be freaking mad, because I don't think there's any surprise what I come to work for. I don't think there's any surprise to anybody what I'm doing in this seat. It's to make. And if I don't see that freaking dollar sign hit my bank account, I'm out of here. Like I was not born yesterday. Like I'm so mad, right? So I ended up trying to leave. And then what happened was my personal life came into play. And for a number of reasons, I decided to stay. And this is because I just was not organized. I was not strategic. I was, ironically, as good as I was at managing other people's careers and helping them move and be like super like removed from the situation, so I could tell them exactly what to do, which made me a successful recruiter, which gave me all these placements because everyone relied on my advice and like took it, right? I could not do shit for myself. I could not organize my own interview structure. I did not have anybody working with me. I didn't have a headhunter representing my best interests. I had me in a highly emotional state looking to do damage. And to a certain degree, I self-sabotaged because I was not organized. I did not have a proper job search strategy. And so the easiest decision at the time, I had just purchased a home in New York, and I had just met a man that I thought I would marry. So I stayed in New York, and I just took the counter. It was the easier thing to do. I took a counter that was not a single cent more than what I was leaving behind. So I did not negotiate. I just these are all examples of how horribly I managed my personal situation. As good as I was for other people, I was horrible when it came to doing it for myself, which I think is very typical when you look at top billers and how they behave. They're so like, there's the imposter syndrome, there's the loyalty, there's like the, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be asking for all these things. Ironically, a lot of top billers are not that entitled. They might project that, but internally they're just really like, they're so like nervous about it. You know, they're not genuinely like a-holes, right? They're genuinely really nice people, which is why they got successful. You can't get very successful if you're not genuinely connecting with your population, right? With your network. So for me, it was at the time I did not do the math. I could not think straight. The minute after I took my counter offer, the guy I was dating dumped me. I had to start a whole new market from scratch. My commission model didn't change. Nothing changed. The only thing that did change was I was freed from my management responsibilities and I was allowed to recruit for C-level. So instead of recruiting for regulatory writers, I migrated into doing executive search once again, starting from zero. We didn't have any clients at that point who was buying at that level. And this was my opportunity to start this new division. Of course, I didn't negotiate any equity. I didn't negotiate. again, I did a horrible job in terms of negotiating, but I succeeded and I actually did it for a year and a half before I really had the confidence to retire. Because at that point I was like, okay, now I've built up 2 markets, including executive search, where I landed all these venture capital funds by myself, again, with zero support from anybody. I filled the jobs, multiple jobs with one client, for instance. I think I did 4 deals with them for like $90K a pop,
Wow.
right? So I'm like, I'm good. Like I've proven to myself that I no longer need an employer. And that's when my dad's view and my dad's premonition came true. I quit a week after 5 years anniversary.
I love that.
Yeah, literally, I started January 17th or something of 2011, and I quit January 26th. That was my last paycheck. I got a $30K commission check. That was the last one I would get, and I bounced. And that was January 26th, 2016. So my dad's like prediction came true.
He knew the whole time.
He just knew that like there was no way that I wouldn't put the 2 and 2 together and realize that I no longer needed to work for someone else. And it's very entrepreneurial. He's an entrepreneur, so he knew like eventually I was not going to be an employee forever. And also I did not have any equity plans, right? So companies, it's in their best interest for sure to create equity plans, because they just lost me because I was just like, I've literally nothing here. Like the longer I work here, the more I lose because I don't own anything here. Right. So I'm just going to peace out. So I didn't have any equity. I didn't have anything to really hold me back to stay. And then also I had made a lot of money from real estate investments, and I had a lot of capital backing me to be an independent, to really be alone. And then I just did not want to work for anyone forever again, really, after that.
Yeah, I love it. And I just want to go back to one of these questions too. We've got a couple questions here, and then we can kind of get back things. But Jason just says, how important is your process for vetting clients to your reputation? Obviously they make the decision, but I think the quality you send would be extremely important to keeping the relationship long-term. So I think that's about, the candidates that you're sending over to clients. I'm thinking. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that from your point of view.
So I think it depends what market you're in and depends on kind of your personal approach. So when I started off building my market in the pharmaceutical sector, my first client actually is a terrible client. And that is very common. When you start a new desk, your first 2 or 3 clients are going to be pretty bad. Just because that's just kind of how it goes. Like when you start a new division and you don't have anything to start off with, you're not going to land A accounts from day 1. You're going to probably land C accounts from day 1. And that's a nice place to start, because you need money, right? So day 1, you're going to start off with C accounts. And hopefully in the process of having C accounts, you can build your network, your candidates, and use the C accounts to build good relationships with A type candidates, with amazing candidates, who then you can use these A candidates to build relationships with B tier clients and A tier clients, right? So it's kind of like you start off a little bit it's like the spiral, right? That's like going up in a 3D fashion, right? You start off on the bottom and you're moving your way up the client vetting process. Again, day 1, you're going to work C accounts, and that's okay, because guess what? C accounts pay for fees, and there are C tier candidates out there as well. And in the beginning, when you start your business, you're going to be working with some C tier clients and some C tier candidates. And that's perfectly okay, especially when you get more and more senior. You also will still have some B tier clients, some C tier clients. You're gonna have some C tier candidates. You're gonna have some C tier, a B tier candidates. You're just gonna have like some less than people in your network. It's very hard to be that selective to not work with, just work the A accounts, because you are leaving a lot of money on the table to not work B and C tier accounts. The workaround your question relating to how do you not damage your reputation is, don't bring up a C tier client to an A tier candidate. An A tier candidate knows their market value, is somewhat knowledgeable. They have some connections. They have a better idea than a C tier candidate of what's appropriate. So if you try to give a C tier client and try to sell a C tier client to an A tier candidate, it's just going to embarrass yourself. Absolutely. Because you're making the wrong match. Game recognizes game, and they're on 2 different playing fields. So don't do that, right? And if you do that, make sure that the C tier client understands where they fall in the client spectrum. So if a C-tier client sucks, you can just let them know, hey, guess what, buddy? Your company is just not competitive. It just isn't. For you to be competitive, you need to increase your pay grade. The lower the client, the more you got to pay because you suck. And for people to deal with your BS, you got to pay. So that's how it goes, right? Like you just be honest with your client and just, hey, buddy, like, are you J&J? I didn't think so. J&J can get away with paying people at 90% market value because it's J&J. J&J also provides a bajillion discounts on 99% of your household goods. Can you do that? I didn't think so. So guess what? Your pay grade, J&J can get away with paying $90,000 for this talent. You gotta pay $120 for someone to show up to work. Right? And if you don't understand that, I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you with every A candidate I bring to the table. And I'll tell my A candidate, hey guy or hey gal, guess what? Like I got this C-tier client, right? They're a C-tier client. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They're not J&J. They're a C-tier client. But guess what? They'll pay you $120, right? Your market value is $100. I'm getting you 20 grand just to show up to work and suck it up. Is it worth it to you? And the client candidate A might say, you know what? I don't give a crap about culture. I don't care. I'm in it for the money. And 20K above regular value, I'll take it because I don't care, right? So as long as you're upfront and honest to both sides, you just save everybody the discomfort of a lack of expectations or mismatching, right? So I'm always very honest to clients when I'm like, you're just not competitive. Like this is not competitive. Like, do you know what company B does down the street? Do you know what company B is able to get away with? Can you do what they do? I didn't think so. So guess what? You're going to have to do something different to win the same candidate. Because if I represent this candidate to both of y'all, guess who they're going to choose? Not you at this rate, right? So you just have to be honest to everybody. And that should help with this sort of reputation thing. Because the reality is somebody's making money off the C accounts. Why shouldn't it be you?
Yeah.
Right? Now, contrast that to my current role. I recruit recruiters now. And recruiters are exceptionally smart. Yes, I definitely don't represent C-tier clients now. Because C-tier clients today, I cannot attract top billers with C-tier accounts. So if the account isn't good enough, I really do have to walk away from that business because I'm in a different market. I'm in recruiting for agency recruiters. They know the deal. If it's a company that I won't even work at, I would be unlikely to recommend it to a top biller because we don't work C candidates in this market because a C tier candidate is not going to get placed. And if they are, they're going to get placed at a lower percentage, at a lower value. And I don't want to waste my time with that. So in my current business, my reg to rec business, we don't do any C tier business because there just is no point to working C tier business on both account side and on the candidate side in my current role, right? Because if a candidate is not good in as a recruiter, why would a recruitment company pay me to hire them? Right? So the same would be said. If a client is not good, why would a smart recruiter work there? They wouldn't. So as the introductory service, I have to be very exclusionary which accounts I allow myself and my team to represent. So we're very careful what we do and how we do it versus in a pharmaceutical in a STEM-based market. Yeah, that naturally, again, kind of self-selects. It's like, circle of life. But in recruiting, the circle of life is so lopsided, where like the top 20 agencies are so much better than the bottom like 50%, that it doesn't make sense in my current business model to take that low level business. I wouldn't have time for it, right? I would only need to focus on the top layer in terms of my current business and the competitive forces in my unique current market. So it depends on market and it depends on how you handle it.
I mean, there's so much in there, which I'm just going to go to some of these comments real quick. So someone said, this woman's a real go-getter. I like her. So you got a fan here because you bring in the fire. Cameron said, let's go. Game recognizes game. Nice. Full of gems. I think this is the one I like the most right here. Real talk. Because I think, what I see a lot in recruiting, I see a lot of kind of the fake it mentality, which you mentioned earlier, but it translates into an inability to become a true consultant and actually consult the clients where they need to be consulted. So we get in a habit of saying everything the client wants to hear to every client, instead of actually doing them a favor and saying, hey, this is actually why you're having trouble attracting people and retaining them. And I think unless you can get to that point where you're trusted enough to be that advisor, then you're going to be you're going to be in a hamster wheel for a long time. So I love the fact that you're so straightforward. I think that's refreshing. And I'm sure when you're working with clients, especially in the rec to rec game, I mean, that's going to be that's huge. So now that you're doing rec to rec, what in your mind, like, how do you determine whether a client is that like C client? Like, what are the types of things that you look for, or is it just reputation? Like, how do you make that judgment?
A couple clues. One is their general kind of track record, right? So you look at how long they've been in business and where are they? Like, where are they at today? If they've been in business for 10 years and everyone there is in their 50s, this is a company with no future, because everybody there is on their way to retirement and there's no next gen. So that's one red flag, right? Where there's no next gen. They can't retain top talent who are upcoming, because we work with upcoming top talent. We don't, that's our business model. We work with people like me, right? Like, I'm trying to find me. Like, I'm trying to find where are all the Dandans in the world. And obviously they're not going to be Asian American females. They're going to be like everybody, right? But where's that person? Where's that person 2 to 3 years out of their agency that's ready for that next step, that can bill 500 to 700, right? So if you're talking to a company where they got people there working for 30 years and they're billing 200 a year each, that's not good. That's not good. Considering that 24-year-olds can do 300 year one with knowing absolutely zilch, right? So that's not good. So market standards, there's market standards. And if you're not performing at a certain market standard, you're at a mom and pop. You would call it a mom and pop. So mom and pops, if they're not growth oriented, if the people at the mom and pop are not top billers, there's no growth. There's no growth. There's no money to go around to grow, because you're living comfy on 200K because you're an independent recruiter. Can you grow a family with 200K? No, you can't. You can't retain our services if your average biller is doing 200K and you're a shop of 5 people doing 200K, when sometimes there's an individual doing $1 million by themselves, right? So like, the production numbers are definitely going to be another clue, right? So if the numbers are not great as opposed to their age of experience, then that's a big red flag. That means you're in an underperforming shop. And then you look at management philosophy. Do they even have some sort of internal structure, some sort of vision, some sort of processes that they have internally? Or are they just going to work, showing up, rolling in, making a few calls and collecting checks? Are they aimlessly just hanging out and recruiting? Because it's easy to just make a couple dollars and just aimlessly recruit. That's okay. Are they in a desirable market? Are they recruiting, let's say, admin assistants? And you see how COVID wiped out a lot of that kind of work, right? Customer service agents. If I'm a smart recruiter, do I want to work somewhere where every deal I do is going to net me $300? No, that's not a good market. So like, the market is also something worth thinking about. And then ultimately, like, the attitude and the follow through of the leadership. Is the leadership inspiring? Are they penalizing? Do they think that whipping you is going to get you in shape? Or are they leading by example? Are they being that next gen leader? Or are they just being like the old school, just dial more, just do more, just do more, just do more of this, do more of that? And then when you do make money, they don't actually split the wins with you, and they're trying to slice and dice your commission. They're trying to screw you out of your money, or they're mismanaging the money. Maybe they have inflated living lifestyles. You know, that certainly bothered me when I saw people behave in a financially irresponsible manner. Like, that doesn't speak well to managing your company, right? Do I want to know that you're buying a Ferrari every other week? I'm not feeling comfortable about that. So all of those things you add them all together, you can kind of get a general idea of where is this company going? And also, what stage of growth is this business? And is it suitable for my candidate? And obviously that's different, because we have a whole slew of different types of clients to show each candidate. And we can kind of help them test their hypotheses, right? Like, you may think this type of big box shop is going to be good for you, but have you even thought about why that may not be good for you? right? So that's the consultative process that we take to really use our expertise, having heard it, seen it, worked with C-tier clients, and then rejected working with them moving forward. We have a lot of clients that over the years we don't work with anymore. And it's because we've seen what that's really like. And it's not usually great, right? So there is definitely a pool of clients we definitely do not work with anymore because we've seen how dirty they can get. And we don't want to represent those dirty people. It's just not part of our book. Like, and if you're rude to us, if we're your vendor and we've done nothing but try to provide value, and by the way, we're working for free because we're contingent, it's not retained, and I'm not your internal recruiter. If you treat us rudely, it does not bode well for you either, right? Like there's just no need to treat people like that. And you can tell how good is a manager by the way they treat people, right? Why would you need to treat someone like that? Why is that going to be beneficial to your business to treat people like that? Right.
Yeah.
The worst examples I've had are clients that try to backdoor me. And I'm just like, are you literally brain dead? Like, do you not understand how this works? Like, you are definitely. And then when I call them out on it, they get very defensive. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Do you really want me to say it explicitly what you did to me? Do you need me explicitly to tell you to your face what you did to me? Or can you understand what you did that maybe I'm not happy about? Right? Like, and then they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, so you want me to explicitly tell you what you did? Oh, I'm happy to tell you. Like, I was just trying to save you.
I can't believe that. I mean, well, I can believe it because I know the industry, but you know, it's shocking to me that number one, you treat people poorly if you're a recruitment firm because you know what it's like on the other side. But then even the back door, I mean, all of that is terrible. I'm curious, like with it from a candidate standpoint, are you getting a lot of candidates come to you directly? I mean, are you at that point now where it's just, you know, you've got top quality people coming to you, or how do you kind of work that within your agency? Like, how have you set that up to where, you know, like you're the name that people come to if they're a top biller?
I wish top billers would reach out and would be proactive, but they're not. Just like me, if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't be either, right? Like top billers do not have to do that. They don't have to reach out to me. Like I'm trying to reach out to them. Like I know who they are and I want to talk to them. Some of them are movable. Some of them are beyond help. So, because top billers are very stubborn. So this is another problem with recruiting top billers. A lot of them are very stubborn. You can literally tell them exactly what's going to happen and they won't believe you because they're just like, I need to do it for myself. And I can understand that because I'm like that. I'm hard-headed. I need to experience the pain before I understand what they were saying is correct. Right? Because even reflecting back to myself, I remember when I was taking on that management job, one of my colleagues was like, are you sure this is a good idea? And I was like, absolutely. I was so sold, there was no helping me. And that's the problem with top billers. They're so sold in whatever it is they're doing, which has made them successful, but then they're not remembering and they're not understanding how they're screwing themselves because they only see it from that one vantage point, which is they're like a robot that's like completely bamboozled by the Kool-Aid, right? Yeah. So they do not see beyond, just like I did. No reason would rationalize me to do the right thing because I'm only emotive. I'm only behaving with my emotions because I'm just feeling some type of way and I'm reacting, right? So top billers, typically speaking, they do not do what they need to do, which is actually be smart enough to actually build relationships with top rec to recs. And I really do say that we are, I believe 100% that if they come to us, the service level and the confidentiality they receive from us is top notch, but they may not believe it. And their managers may tell them, oh, don't do this, don't do that. And then they might buy that, you know? So it's really hard to get through to top billers because they're so insulated, they're so bought in, and they have so much loyalty. So what happens sometimes is definitely referrals, right? Referrals, especially from people we place, right? We place people and they love our service. You know, it's completely confidential. We've helped them so much better than with all the other rec to recs they're dealing with, many of whom don't even live in this country or operate on this time zone and only offer them one type of client, which is your typical British agency that's going from zero to hero, right? We actually have the whole gamut and we've been selective. We've only chosen the ones that we think are actually have merit and the ones that we think are just like chop shops. They're just like another excuse, right? Like just another bit of the same, right? Like we're really thinking with our candidate in mind, like who do we want to service and what do we want to do for them? We don't want to just take amazing people and sell them into a bad opportunity, right? Because again, that's not how you're going to survive in the rec to rec business, right? So the way that we've positioned it is we want top billers to be at least conscious and confidentially network so that we can at least have a dialogue. But most of the people that reach out to us, unfortunately, a lot of them don't read the information. They don't know what we really do. And some of them are like, oh, I just want a job. And like, look, we're not placing people that need a job, right? If you're a recruiter that just needs a job, that's just a totally wrong approach to this business, right? It's not you need a job. It's you're willing to make money for your employer. And if you're not willing to make money for your employer, you don't get a job. We're not giving you one, right? So if that's your attitude where you're just like, give me, this is not a business for you. Like, this is not what you should be doing. You should be doing customer service. You should be working retail. Do something else. Don't do this job. This job is you earn your seat. You make it happen. You sell to people why you're worth hiring. You work for free if you need to. Like, this is a prove it or else I'm not hiring you, right? So the people who are just like, oh, I just want to manage. And I've worked in the industry for 20 years, by the way. Like, innovation in the last 20 years in recruitment has been so much. So like, if you're saying, oh, I've been doing it for 30 years, I just want to sit around and tell people what to do. That's a profile that will reach out to us and thinking we're like some sort of job agency. And I'm like, no, we're moving revenue generators only. We're not moving random people that happen to do a job related to getting people jobs, right? Staffing. We're not doing staffing. We're doing high level matchmaking for top billers and top recruitment firms. That's our business. We're not just doing general placement of anyone who has ever called a candidate on the phone, right? So our benchmark is very high. So even the referrals that we receive, most of them are not applicable because the people we really want are, again, very few and far between.
Well, how much are they tied? I would think that like non-competes would be a massive thing tying into people, kind of tying people to jobs. So, let's say you're billing $1 million and you've got a non-compete that, it's 18, let's say 18 months on the long side. What is the top reason that you see, somebody in that position, they're making really good commissions? Like at what point, or what I guess what would happen externally to get them to the point where they're like, man, I've got to get out of here. I mean, what do you see as common?
Well, it depends on where they're feeling, right? It depends on what that biller wants to do with their future. So if a biller wants to just coast and they've like earned their stripes and they build that mill and they don't want to bill anymore, then they're better off staying wherever they are and go into a management role, right? Because like, I don't need that type of profile. If it's somebody who's like, wow, I bill a mill and I make like a third of it when I could be getting half of it, that's a good time to work with a rec to rec, because that's easily changeable. Like, we could easily up your commission rates. With non-competes, most states are employee friendly. Just like, and when I was exiting the industry, I also was terrified about the non-compete, terrified. Again, just completely insulated, no idea how the real world works. We've placed, at this point, almost 200 people over the last 3 years. Not a single person has been sued or taken to court. You can assume like 3/4 of those placements were experienced hires moving from like kind job to another job. So if they were doing IT recruiting, we're moving them to do IT recruiting. And not a single person has been taken to court, because the only thing they can really get you for is like corporate espionage, where you physically steal. So if you don't steal from your company, as in you take this flash drive and you email yourself the entire roster of clients and candidates and just Dropbox everything. If you're not doing that, you're not going to get caught, because you have to earn a living and this is your profession. So, how can you tell a doctor not to be a doctor? Like, they're a doctor. Like, they have to do the doctor work. They don't have to serve the same patients. They can serve different patients. They can't go after your patient book, but they can do their job, right? That's the whole point of the free market. So actually, there's government support on the employee side for many people to continue doing what they're doing. Again, you just cannot commit corporate espionage and steal. Stealing is easily trackable, is easily, something, if they wanted to, they could make a stink about it. Another point is, most people are too young in their career to be a serious threat. So a lot of people who are 2-3 years in, if they're not some sort of senior account manager dealing with like some key accounts that really have a ability to commit some serious damage, they're not going to get persecuted because they're just like a 2-year recruiter who's been doing some IT recruiting in New York, right? When they move, like really, is the company going to take out $20,000 and take you to court? No, they have better things to do. They're losing people by the dozen, right? They don't have time to take every single person to court. The people they will take to court are the ones, again, who really violate and get caught doing so. Right. So a typical tip that I'll tell people is like, just when you leave, delete. Just if you do tend to run into whoever you're dealing with before, make sure that they don't accidentally email your old email. Right. Just these small little things that you do to protect yourself legally. It's just smart to do because candidates and clients don't know any better. Yeah. They will just be reaching out to you and then accidentally reach out to you on your old email. They may not even know that you switched firms. And they hit you up at your old email, and then your boss is like, I'm going to sue you. So, you do little things to minimize your risk. But at the end of the day, this is just common happenstance. And this is how they get you with the fear tactics and intimidation. In the real life, in the real world, it doesn't much happen. And if it does, again, you'd have to be a very unique person for them to enact those type of gestures. And you'd have to have committed some serious issues for a company to really go after you, which is very rare.
It's great advice. And I mean, it comes down to, like you said, it's fear tactics. And there's a lot of tactics at play, I'm sure, in your world too, that you have to work through with people. And Tom just asked, how do you source a top biller? But better yet, how do you verify that they're legit? So like if somebody comes to you, like how are you doing that? I mean, as much as you can share.
Just on a profile, it's pretty straightforward. Like anyone getting promoted multiple times, you can assume is doing pretty well, right? So someone who's getting promoted multiple times is doing good. Someone who's been promoted into the sales side obviously is doing something right, right? So like, they're getting promoted, they're moving up in the food chain, right? A lot of times recruiters are just doing recruiting, and that's certainly not the, apex of our career. You got to be on the sales side, and you got to kind of make it to the sales side to be really considered a top billing headhunter, right? So like you look for sales experience, and then when you interview them, it's very easy, especially for me on the perm side, to suss out if someone's lying to me or not, right? Like you just ask them, how much are you billing this year? And if they don't know that number, that's your first red flag. How many deals do you close a month? If you don't know that number, that's another very clear red flag. What's your average deal size? What's the percentage you charge your client? If you can't answer these questions in clear succession, you either are just like the world's most disorganized recruiter, or you're just a miracle. Like, I just don't know any person who is that disbumbled, disjumbled, discombobulated, who's billing $1 million. Like, people who are billing $1 million, they know their stuff. Yeah. And they're not going to be like, oh, let me like really think about that. No, like, you know exactly what you closed last month because you've been plugging it into your commission calculator all week. Like, I used to play with my commission calculator on the regular. I would know exactly how much extra placement this month is going to make me. And I know exactly what my year-to-date income is. Like, every single month, I'm looking at that bottom line and I'm seeing where am I at, right? So if you're asking a top biller and they don't know their numbers, then that's a liar. That's somebody who's lying. And then you can test your soft skills. Pitch me a candidate, pitch me a client. And if it sounds off, if it's something where you're like, wow, I can't imagine a client liking this call, then you could probably put the 2 to 2 together. This probably isn't your client winner here, right? Like, sometimes I'll ask a candidate, like, okay, so like pitch me, like, let's say you're calling me, I'm a client. How do you pitch business? And they're like, hello, my name is Bob. I work at Joe Schmo recruiting firm. We recruit accountants. What are your needs this year? How are things going? Like, already, like, that, come on, like, that's not going to work, right? Like, you clearly have not landed an account in a while if that's your pitch, right? Like, it's just the wrong pitch, right? So it's very easy to test someone. And that's why, like, recruiting is not like a to Z, like, it's not a clear-cut science for recruiters, right? Because you have to look at the holistic picture. Right. One candidate I talked to recently on the phone, I was like, oh, I'm not liking your energy level. I'm not liking this and that. But then I was like, pitch me just pitch me. Like, I'm a client, pitch me. And he pitched me. And I was like, whoa, actually, you woke up. Wow, your pitch actually was pretty good. So, like, you can never make assumptions. You really do have to go through your entire vetting process to really judge somebody. And I'm hard on my interviews. And if they can't take the heat, they can certainly not. Yeah,
I can believe that. I can believe that.
Yeah, I'm really harsh on interviews, and people will just be like, I didn't know this was going to be an interview. And I was like, what did you think it was going to be, genius? Like, what did you think this was going to be? A kumbaya where I'm just calling to like, hi, I'm bored out of my mind and I'm here wasting my time talking to random people off the internet? Like, you don't think this is an interview? Like, have you no strategic sense, right? So it's just like, I go extra hard on the interviews, because if they can't overcome my objections, if they can't quickly turn me from a no to a yes, then they cannot do that to a candidate or a client, because I'm easy. I'm easy. If they talk to one of my clients are tougher than I am.
I imagine.
Yeah, if they can pass my gate, they can certainly not pass.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think of, if you're a top agency and you're looking for a top talent and you're going to be paying for it, you're not going to go easy on candidates like that. So you'd be doing them a disservice if you were, giving them the easy pass to your clients. So I get that 100%.
Free service. The clients pay for the service, so they're going to be extra harsh on interviews, right? This is not a free service. So every time they talk to a candidate we represent, they're going to take. They're definitely interested, because our quality barrier is so high. They're definitely like interested, but they're definitely going to ask and make sure they do their homework, because it's an investment. So I think why I love my business so much is it really does provide insurance for everyone involved, right? It provides insurance to the candidate that we're dealing with clients that actually have money and will spend it, not act like they have money and will be like fidgety about spending it. Because we talk to a lot of clients that act like they have money and want to use our services and act all like they're serious business. And when it comes to hiring and when it comes to pulling the trigger, all of a sudden there's like a bajillion excuses why they're not going to hire, why they're not going to pay. At which point we're like, you're a joke, like, see you later, right? Versus on the candidate side, right? Like, clients know when they're getting a candidate from us, that person's been clearly vetted and that person's like good, right? So when they see a candidate come from us, they're like, this is like a serious candidate. And it gives us, I always call it the halo effect. Because we're so good at what we do, any candidate that comes through our vetting process can get away with more too, because the client obviously is going to be like, well, if DG puts a stamp of approval, there must be some redeeming quality, right? So it's good for the candidate too to use us versus, let's say, another rec to rec that has a low hit rate and a bad market rep, where clients are like suspect, right? They look at that candidate, this is another rec to rec giving, I don't know if this person is really good, right? So for us, we really have this luxury of having a market branding that allows us to really help the network. Because I do see sometimes good billers get put into bad situations. I definitely see that. And I feel bad for them, because sometimes they're in a bad situation if they don't meet us and they try to represent themselves, or they try to represent themselves through another rec to rec. They may not do it right. They may not do the reference checking. They may not do the homework of really understanding the individual circumstances and really be able to speak to them, so that that potentially really good-hearted person that just got overlooked just gets sidelined, right? Because they're not working with the right partners to get them the visibility and the sort of connections that they need. So for us, we get to benefit to really work with the people that we believe genuinely are good people with the right intentions to succeed in this business.
Well, I love it. And again, I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I know that we're just over an hour here, so I want to be protective of your time. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2 or a second part, because I got a ton of questions left, and maybe we could look to do that in 2021. But just before we get off here, I do like to just close these episodes with kind of going back to the start, right? So when you first started, you started in a pretty difficult time, even though you weren't necessarily as aware of it as maybe others were about this time, which is a really challenging time. But if you were to speak to somebody who's just starting, they're like 3 to 6 months into their career, we're in the middle of a pandemic, they're feeling alone, they're feeling isolated, they're thinking, is this the right game for me? Is this the right thing I should be doing? What would be your advice to somebody like that?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. And I find myself also in that same boat, being that the COVID situation has definitely impacted our business, definitely for the good, but certainly challenging, where I'm still producing. I'm very much in the same boat that many of our candidates and clients are in, which is you're trying to grow and succeed and build your business in a negative market forces for a variety of reasons. But there are opportunities there. right? With every bad situation, there's a good opportunity where your competition is also suffering, right? So keeping that in mind is like, number one, your competition is suffering just as much as you are. That should comfort you, right? Because they're also in a bad situation. If anything, what that means for you, number two, is that you can control your factors, like yourself. You can control yourself, control what you can control, which is yourself. You can't control the market. You can't control the world. You can't control anything, right? The only thing you can control is your day-to-day personal mindset and behaviors. So the last point is, what drives you at the end of the day? For me, I haven't let COVID stop me this year. I purchased 2 more homes and I sold 2 homes. I did not let this, while the macro scene was brewing, I was not letting it impact my micro behavior, because I was just like, my goal is clear. I'm going to make money. That's my goal, right? So if I'm going to sell a house, if the number's right, I'll freaking sell it. I don't care. I don't need to make the most money from it. I just need to get rid of it, because I know there's going to be money on the other side where I can take the proceeds from this home and I can buy another one, right? I can capture the potential revenue losses I had on house 1 into house 2, right? So you just got to kind of like ditch the things you got to ditch, whether that's people, assets, bad spending behaviors, whatever it is. Ditch the things that are not working for you. Move on to the things that are going to work for you, and just keep the money at your mind's forefront, right? There's this like negative push towards money in our society, where like anybody who likes money too much is derided, is looked down upon, disdained, is it doesn't seem proper. It's almost like sacrilegious to say that. I don't know, someone's reading, but almost sacrilegious to say that you actually want to make money, right? Yeah. So for me, it's like, no, double down even more. And I want this goddamn money. I came here to make this money. I don't care what is going on out there. I'm going to stick to my processes. I'm going to stick to I'm just going to keep beating my head on the floor until I get some money, squeeze some money out of this pavement, right? This is like dry land. It's a desert right now. And I'm just going to freaking squeeze water out of a desert right now. That is what I'm going to do, because I'm going to make it. I'm going to survive. I'm going to put like my needs, which is money, above all else. I'm going to make it happen. In the time of negativity, survival instinct has to take over, where it's not even about like face anymore. It's not even about like acting cool. I just tell people I need candidates. Like, you need to hook me up with your friends. Like, I have so many jobs right now. I need your help. Like, you need to help me get people. Like, I'm going to just beg for candidates, because I don't have time to sit on my high horse and act like I'm above. I'm in sales. I need to live it. Doesn't matter if I got 10 years in business or I got 1 month in the business. If I cannot humble myself to that degree where I am leveraging and passionate for money, then why am I in a money-making business? Right? So we have to humble ourselves back to square one, which is got to bring that bacon home. How, by some way, we have to survive, right? So that's the last tidbit that I have.
No, I love it. And I mean, it's mindset, having that right mindset. It's really looking at like, why are you even doing what you do? And I mean, there's so much that this whole interview has just been jam-packed. Where can people find you? What's the best place for them to find you? I know you do a lot of content on a lot of different platforms. What's the best place that people can find you, and how would you advise them to reach out to you? Because I know that you're busy as well, and you've got a lot going on.
So I do provide private coaching for people who actually want individual one-on-one coaching. And then I also have a free podcast, DG Recruit Podcast, that has a lot of free coaching on there. I publish a lot through Quora, through like Medium. I have some stuff. LinkedIn, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you're always going to see my mostly daily posts and videos. And then the last bit is signing up to dgrecruit.com. I actually have a newsletter. I'm going to be putting out like a newsletter later today. And on Thursday, every month we do a recruitment roundup. So this Thursday, I have another recruitment roundup coming up. So if you follow me, you're going to see the links pop up. Sign up to that. It's an open forum for anyone to ask any question. Anybody can answer. We can all pitch in to share ideas to help each other make it through every single month in this business, Corona or no Corona. Right? It's just a tough business, and we want to be a resource for people every single month consistently. So the best way is to just find me on any platform, and then add me. And then if you want private coaching, we can certainly do a session of that.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I know we took a little bit more time. We'll definitely have to do this again. And I would just highly recommend anyone out there follow, connect, and don't, especially if you're a top biller, definitely reach out. And Dandan, we really appreciate you today. We appreciate you having you on the show, and look forward to doing another episode in the near future.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see you guys.